right. We had a 3-minute and 50-second behind the ships last week, I think. This week we got a 3-minute and 30-second one for an entire spaceship. So that's interesting. This one's the Drake Golem. So they basically just split up the two ships. I was unsure when the Geo was by itself last week if the Golem was even planned for 4.1, or were they just testing something? Like, I don't know what was going on because they've taken it away. It's not in the PTU anymore. Don't know what's happening there. But here we are. We're going to go ahead and watch the Drake Golem video. I'm really excited for this ship for a number of reasons. Its size, its cargo, the way the cargo works on it, and its ability to, because of those things, work together as a group mining session instead of the Prospector, which is not bad as a group, but you know, those bags are kind of annoying to work with and don't really, they fit on grids, but not in the same way as this one will. So let's check it out. Whoa. Wow.
Golem is basically a new starter ship from Drake for people looking to get into mining.
It's very bare bones. They seen the Prospector and was like, we can do that, maybe. And then went to the scrapyard and grabbed a bunch of stuff and stuck it together. Starter Miner is, instead of having all these fancy heads that do fancy things.
Did they call it a starter ship? Did they just call it a starter ship? I don't understand this logic of starter ships. It's a one-trick pony. It's not a starter ship. And I just want to say, they've been calling the Prospector a starter ship for a really long time as well.
And you skip a couple of steps. It's learning how to do mining, learning how the different heads and different consumables help.
I believe the best part is it's compact, can mining, and also price, performance balance ship.
He talked about price, okay.
Visually,
we don't know
it
the
looks
price.
Very industrial. There's lots of exposed parts. You can kind of see that they want to show you how this works.
The exterior parts, which Alex and Michael worked.
I didn't know it had missiles. Okay, that's the first mining vehicle that has missiles. So I guess that is a thing that matters one day if missiles of those size are okay and can do something. I didn't notice it had missiles from when I reviewed it, but the thing about the starter ship thing, let's go on that for a little bit, is I've always really, really, really thought that this idea of stepping stones with ships is a really bad idea. And you can have some level of step, right? Like I go from my starting or, low level ship, but we obviously have crafting, so we'll be able to level these things up. Like they're just leaving no room for using this thing once you buy a Prospector. And I know the game's not done and all these things, but just like the way the economy is looking and just how much money is being thrown all over the place, why would you ever use this from a min-max standpoint? I like the idea of using it I like the way it looks. I like the way the cargo works, like I said. I like that you could fit it into a big multi-cruise ship and stuff like that. So there's an idea there that this might work for that a little bit better. But that's not really game design. That's kind of like the sandboxy elements of it. Like the design parts should be, well, like the Prospector does this really well, and this does this really well. So then, like I talked about with the Fortune and the Vulture. Yeah, Fortune and the Vulture. Like, what if one did construction materials really well and one did RMC really well? Then both have a purpose within the verse, and they're not necessarily competing against each other, but they're both useful. And then we all know CIG loves their money. If both ships are useful, then you're not melting the Prospector to buy this, and you're not melting this to buy the Prospector, right? You have both. Why wouldn't they want to go in that direction? I have no idea. But
heavily on it has lots of Drake special DNA details.
It almost feels like it's missing cladding where you would expect there to be covering up these fragile, very exposed pieces. It's got a couple of like really.
And again, the artist paid no fucking mind to gameplay whatsoever, because in order to deal with the tractor beam attachments, I literally have to move this cargo bag. And even then, it's next to impossible to connect them.
Interesting tanks on the back that sort of store all of the minerals that you're hoovering up. You can take them off. And
I am willing to bet they do not show this bag coming towards the player or actually being removed from the ship. Because you can't. Because as you could see, this is in the way. You guys have already watched it, though. They did remove the back bag, though. If the back bag is in, you can't.
And then that sort of reveals the tucked
Yeah, it's the back bag then.
away components on the roof and the sides. They're real cool looking. I would get up there and just check out the mining arm. Batu did a fantastic job.
They might be
When
playing
you
a
take
different
the
game
pods
than us.
off and you look up where the mining head sits, and you can see all of the piping and where like the mining head just rests. It all looks really cool.
I believe that personally my favorite part of the ship because it's nothing like the other mining arms in the whole game.
It's a completely brand new mining head from Drake, so it'll be unlike anything that you can see on any other ships.
The mining is a little bit more unstable because I would say that Drake decided to get the cheapest laser that they could find to get this to work. So it's a little unstable, so it kind of breaks some of the ore, so you don't get as much as you would. You don't get the cheap.
How big of a rock were they mining?
Mining is a little bit.
The best they did was 7,500, and they have no modules on. Gold, copper, and it says easy.
More unstable because I would say that Drake decided to get the cheapest laser that they could find to get this to work. So it's a little unstable, so it kind of breaks some of the ore, so you don't get as much as you would with some of the others.
Probably not as versatile as something that you'd get from like the Prospector.
You can't take its heads off, but you can add the gadgets to it to make it work in different ways. But it will
modules, but gadgets too. Gadgets are the things that go on the rock. The modules are the ones that go on the laser, just so people don't get confused or whatever, because there's 50 things that go with mining. So it's like gadgets, modules, lasers, attachments. There's too many things that go with mining. Modules, attachments, this, that, and yeah, so it has 2 slots.
Definitely get the majority of the rocks that you can mine as a single player in the game.
Are gadgets even working? Yeah.
That should feel like a solid, compact ship that you can take it and start mining immediately.
We think this is a good ship for mining to start off with. If for people who don't want to invest in a Prospector, you can grab it sooner, start learning how.
What game are they playing? Are they talking about in-game credits? Are they talking about real money? Because even then, the amount is pretty nominal between the two, I would imagine. Everyone's thinking this is going to be a little less than 100. And what's the Prospector? Like 120 to 150, right? Yeah, they're going this like stepping stone route. They're trying to really sell that idea, but I just don't think that idea works in games like this. It just doesn't make any sense. So to me, who here likes the idea of like using a ship, buying it for real money, and then never flying it again, right? It's a weird one. Now I know that's a very like min-maxy mentality, but is it really? Right? Is it really? Because, if you've never mined before, you got to kind of stay out of this conversation a little bit. So if you guys have, comments that you're making or disagreeing with me, I really hope you've mined a lot. Because if you haven't, you've never really understood the aspect of flying around forever and having to skip rock after rock after rock in a Prospector because you can't break it, knowing that somebody else is flying around in a mole and can. it is pretty frustrating that, you know, you're the scanning mechanics is one of the things that really gets in the way, I think, more than anything here, is that you're spending a lot of time scanning, not a lot of time mining, because on these smaller ships, you're really limited in what you can do. Now, the Prospector can do a lot more than this thing, from my experience so far with it, because one thing they have not mentioned is they said it was really unstable. That's what they said. The instability was high. But they did something really goofy here, is they made it have the most powerful laser, like, equal to the Helix. So if anybody, again, hopefully you've been mining a lot if you're making comments on this, the Helix is 3,150 power. So is the bespoke laser on this ship, 3,150 power. But they've done this little thing where they added plus 20 or plus 25 resistance to this vehicle. Power isn't a big deal nowadays. Yeah, it is, dude. So, yeah, again, you don't know what you're talking about here. Power is everything in this game. So there's a little calculation of your laser power times 0.2, and then I think you reduce whatever that number is by 25%, and that's the biggest rock you can break when you have 25% resistance on. So now you have to use one of the attachments to reduce that resistance. So you'll either put a gadget, like she said, or a module to reduce that resistance. Now you're left with one other thing to maybe boost the power up or something like that. Now, what's really nice about this laser, again, they didn't show much of the laser and they didn't talk much about it. God, guys, it's a 3-minute video. I wish they spent a little bit more time talking about it. The laser, like, again, I don't know why they took these things away from us, because we were able to talk about them better than they were in this situation. The laser that they had also had plus 40% green zone. So even though it was really unstable, you were able to counteract that resistance, leave the instability, but your green zone was bigger. So now you have a choice for your second one. Are you going to counter the instability? Probably not. Are you going to raise the power and make the instability even worse? Maybe, so you can break bigger rocks, right? Because now you're talking about Helix power. And then you have the next option of making the green zone even bigger to deal with the instability and break whatever you can break. So it does give you options. Like, I could see it there. I don't know what was going on in the PTU. My experience, I was struggling on 6,000 mass rocks, where you should be able to go up to like 16,000 to 18,000, if I'm not mistaken, with a Helix Prospector. So something didn't feel right there. Where this laser has an opportunity, but it felt bugged. But I don't understand necessarily that resistance thing. I think if they took that resistance thing off and they gave you 2 lasers, then you're dialed in with the Prospector a little bit more. But yeah,
to do it, and then
I know they've done testing on this stuff. Like, I talked about 3. What if you put 3 modules on there, you know, and then would it be too overpowered? And like, of course it will be.
you can maybe go to a Prospector afterwards.
I love Drake. I love that it's unapologetically lazy.
Yeah, I mean, I love Drake too. Ooh, we got paints. But yeah, I love Drake too. So like, there's definitely going to be the crowd that's going to use this because it's Drake. I'm definitely one of you in that crowd. One of the reasons I'm going to use this is because it's Drake. But another one of the reasons that I want to use it is because it's small, right? And because it makes sense in some situations. But I don't think those are significant enough. And I would love to see them just gamify everything just a tiny bit more. And I totally understand if you guys don't like that. But I would love mining, salvage, all resource extraction type stuff. Honestly, at most parts of the game, to have just an inch more in the direction of gamifying things by like just giving this some sort of cool bonus that it's you know, I don't know. a better cluster modifier by default? Right? What if this thing cluster modified? Then you're mining with this, a mole, a prospector together, right? Like, I don't know. I wanted to do something where it, because it's so small, that it works together really well, like a swarm of these things, right? Like, what if you were able to cluster modify really well and then everything breaks into 100% pieces if you're working together, right? I think that would be super sweet.
If you're looking for a cool Drake ship, which can mining and also has a compact, you should definitely go for it.
I kind of like this skin.
See, I'm biased. I like all of it, so I don't have a specific spot that I'm like, hey, look at this
skin. I think I'm gonna go.
He's
stock.
just a good little guy.
He is a good little guy. Yeah, I don't know. Okay, so it is going to be in 4.1, so that's cool. But yeah, that's my big thing about all Star Citizenships, and especially, like, I guess the game mechanics that I understand the most, which are like salvaging and mining. I would love to see prospectors, golems, fortunes, vultures kind of being together in the game, and not be one thrown away for the other. That's just where I want to see them go with the game. It looks like they have no desire to do that because that doesn't work well with the pledge store. And I am, again, getting really, really tired. I said at the beginning of the stream today, I hope Chris Roberts is the first trillionaire, right? Like, I don't care how much money they make. I just hope it doesn't, I hope it doesn't, like, they don't affect the video game to make that money. I hope they make a really good video game and make the money, right? And I feel like they're always sacrificing on the video game side to make the money, and I don't think they have to, but they keep doing it, and this is where we are. And you know, they're gonna get my store credit for this thing when it comes out, because I'm not part of any sort of creator program, so I'm gonna have to pick these things up no matter what. I can't avoid it anymore. And they'll get my store credit. I'll swap something for it, and we'll check them out. But I still feel like for the solo guy, you're probably going to be flying a prospector. You can't even drink and eat in this thing. So there's some pretty big negatives that they didn't mention about it. And calling it a starter and not having the basic necessities is a little bit iffy. So because it doesn't, it kind of needs to be parasited to another ship in a way. So, again, if it's supposed to be parasited to a ship, then how are you going to make it work well together with the other ones, right? So I was thinking things like, hey, well, the mole has a special mechanic where the more lasers from the mole that you put on, the lower the instability goes. What if the more lasers from the golem you put on, the better the cluster modifier or something? It doesn't matter. I'm just giving one example. It doesn't have to be that way. But just something that makes sense, that, like, you're going to have a mining field with moles, prospectors, and golems on it, right? That's the game I want to see. And I don't know how you can argue against that one. Why don't you want to see a game with all those things? You know what I mean? Like, I want to hear a real logical argument against that, because I don't think there is one. But yeah, with the Arastra, like, name every mining ship imaginable. A mining operation should and could involve all of them in some way, shape, or form if they look at Star Citizen like a game and not like a fucking store.